Welcome back to this video series of C++ programming. This is the lecture 22 of this video series, and today we are going to discuss about operator overloading using friend functions in C++. In the previous lecture we saw how to overload the operators using the operator overloading member functions. But similarly, the operator overloading can be done using the friend functions, which are the non-member functions of a class. You can overload an operator for a class by using the non-member function, which is usually a friend of that class. So that is a friend function. We'll see some examples of this operator overloading using the friend function. Here first let's overload the plus and minus operator using the friend non-member function. So we'll create one class for that purpose and call this as C1, and inside this class we'll create two member variables. We take the example that we discussed in the previous lecture of the GPS positioning. So here the class name is a location, and we'll create the variable. One is longitude and another is latitude, and both must be of a double type. And here we'll create the objects for these two, the two objects for this class location, GPS1 and similarly GPS2. We'll initialize these two objects for the longitude and latitude value. And since we are initializing this object, we have to create a constructor function. So this will take two parameters. One is for longitude and another for the latitude. And now we'll initialize the member variables with the passed parameters. Now let's first create a friend function that will overload the plus operator. So as we know how to create a friend function, so to specify a friend keyword, then the name of that function. In this case, we are using overloading the operators. So we have to use this operator keyword and then the operator. And now we can define this friend function outside this class, as this is a non-member function of this class. But what parameters we must pass to this friend function? First, let's use this overload operator function here. So we'll add these two objects, GPS1 and GPS2, and we'll store the result into this GPS1 object. As we talked in the previous lecture, typically this when you're using the operator overloading member functions, this statement will be expanded to a statement. That means this is a member function of the GPS1 object, and we are passing passing the parameter as a second object, so that's GPS2. But now in this case of a friend function, since friend function is a non-member function, it doesn't belong to any object, so, so it doesn't use this pointer. So now this expansion, when you're using the friend function for operator overloading, won't be applicable. That means now the operator function will be called independent of this object or the member. So that means now we have to pass the two parameters, and that is the difference between the operator overloading with using the member operator overloading function and operator overloading using the friend non-member function. So we here this function will expect the two parameters. So that means the objects basically. So when we write this statement, this function will be evoked and it will take the two parameters, that is the two objects, the GPS1 and the GPS2. Let's define this function outside the class, and now inside this function we can perform the additional operation. Here we create one object. We'll call this as a temp. Since we are creating another object which doesn't take any parameters, we have to create another constructor that won't take any arguments, that is a parameterless constructor. So now that becomes a constructor overloading here, and inside this temp object, for the this is the longitude member of this temp object. So inside this longitude object, we'll add the values of the longitude member for the object 1 and object 2. And now we'll print the value of this uh, member parameters using the function. So we have to create another function. We'll call this as a show. Now using the GPS1 object, we call this show function to display the value of a longitude and a latitude. Alright, now let's run the program and let's see what does it outputs. So it is outputting the value as this two, 22.57 and 6499. So basically it is adding this to longitude and latitude value, and that's why it is outputting the result. So we saw how to overload this plus operator or the addition operator using the friend function. And one important difference we saw is, unlike the normal operator member function, when you are using the friend function to overload this operator, you have to specify the two parameters, that is two objects rather than one object, because this is a non-member function, and as the name suggests, it doesn't deal with any object, and also it doesn't use any this pointer. So that's the reason you have to specify both the objects. Now let's understand this discuss this second point. Since a friend function is not a member of the class, it does not have a this pointer. Therefore, an overloaded friend operator function is passed the operands explicitly. So as we discussed just now, this means that a friend function that overloads a binary operator has two parameters, and a friend function that overloads a unary operator has one parameter. We saw in case of a binary operators like plus, there are two parameters are required, and in case of a friend function that overloads a unary operator, it requires one parameter. In case of a normal member operator functions, only there was no parameter required for the unary operators. But in case of a friend function that overloads the unary operator, you have passed the one parameters. This is the reason they don't use this pointer. Now let's see how we can overload this increment and decrement operator using the friend member function. So if you want to use the friend function to overload the increment and decrement operators, you must pass the operand as a reference parameter, because this is again because the friend function don't have these pointers. So we have to use the reference parameters. Let's see how we can do that. So here we will create one friend function, and also we discussed when you are passing the parameters, it must be a reference. So rather than the normal object, it must be an implicit pointer to the called object. That's a reference. And now here let's use this increment operator to increment the content of the GPS1 object. Now when you invoke this, or when you write this statement, it will invoke this function, and now it will take this GPS1 object as a reference. So now this object1 will act as a reference and it will refer to this GPS1 object. How we can perform this increment operations here? Now we have this object as a reference, so we know using the reference variable we can access the member variables. We can add this increment sign at the start, and then we have to return this object. In case we are assigning this incremented value to some other object, we have to return this object here, and that's the reason we have specified the return type as the name of the class. So this is how the increment operators are overloaded using the friend function, and we need this reference parameter because it doesn't use this pointer. Now let's build a program. So this is not a postfix operation, this is a pre-increment operation or pre-increment operator overloading. So you have to specify these two plus signs before the name of that object. And now if you run the program, it should print these values. So it is first incrementing the GPS1 object and then adding the contents. So that's the reason it is printing now different values. Alright, so we saw how we can overload these increment operators using the member functions. And we saw the difference between the overloading with the non-member and the member function. Similarly, we can use the decrement operator, and similarly we can use this minus operator to overload using the friend function. Also, if you want to overload the postfix operator, then as we discussed in the previous lecture, we have to specify this extra parameter. So this is a dummy parameter, and when you write this parameter, it indicates we are overloading the post increment operator rather than the pre-increment operator. We saw how to overload all these four operators using the friend member non-member function. Now let's understand why we need this friend function to overload the operators. In many cases, whether you overload an operator by using a friend or non-member function doesn't make any difference. So both are almost same. But in those cases, it is usually best to overload by using the member function. So in the cases where there's not much difference or it doesn't make any difference to overload using the friend function or a member function, then it is best to overload them using the member functions. We don't have to pass the two different parameters to the function. However, there is one situation in which overloading by using a friend function increases the flexibility of an overloaded operator, and that is here. So if you see the first statement, how this statement is expanded is it will be expanded as an object and dot, and inside it will call this plus operator overloaded member function and will pass the value as 100. So now this statement will work when we are overloading the plus operator using the member function. But in the second statement, we cannot use the member function to overload the plus operator because now this 100 dot obj is not valid, right? This is not a valid operation. This is not a object, and since this is not object, we cannot invoke the member function. So in this case, this can be done only using the friend function. We are passing the two parameters. One is this value, and another is this object for this plus operator friend non-member function. So this is one situation in which the friend overloaded operator using the friend function provides the flexibility. I think we talked about the all important points about the friend functions to overload the operators in C++. So for now, thanks for watching this video and stay tuned for the upcoming videos.